for the presentation of i4Maker, a project management platform designed for Gen Z classrooms. So the four of us are the i4Maker team, and we are excited to share with you the story of i4Maker and how it leverages the power of community to transform secondary classroom learning. I am a former high school science teacher who has spent more than 10 years working in high poverty schools. Sorry about that. Throughout that time, one of the biggest things I've learned is something that is also backed up by decades of research, that engaging youth in real world and personally meaningful projects improves student learning across socioeconomic backgrounds.
That's definitely true. But sadly, despite the mounting evidence and excitement for project-based learning, only roughly 1% of US schools are committed to teaching with it. I'm also a former high school teacher, and 5 years ago, I started using project-based learning with my students because I knew engaging young people in projects is the best way to teach them important skills like problem solving, collaboration, and leadership. However, I also quickly learned that keeping a classroom of 25 students organized and on task over the course of an entire project can be a real struggle. I tried organizing everything in Google Classroom in combination with a project management platform called Monday.com, but keeping everything organized and up to date was overwhelming. I felt like most of the time I was the sole enforcer for all these different tasks, with students only caring about their own task in their own group. That's not what project-based learning is supposed to be. We're supposed to be working together as a community to solve real-world problems that are meaningful to us. But building community is not really what Google Classroom, Monday.com, or other platforms like them are designed for.
So for this project, we drew on our team members with more than 25 years of collective teaching experience. We also read through online educational blogs and academic literature. We conducted interviews of students, educators, and administrators, and post surveys to social media outlets and teacher forums. Through our research work, we continually heard about the challenges in project-based learning, especially from teachers who they felt like there wasn't enough time. They're only one person, or holding students accountable is always a challenge to them.
These problems make sense, especially when you compare project-based learning to the traditional classroom. In most classrooms, the teacher is responsible for holding their students accountable to exactly the same task. Now compare that to project-based learning, where the teacher is seemingly responsible for holding all their students accountable to many different tasks. Too many teachers just feel overwhelmed. As we continued through the design process, we began to realize that if project-based learning was ever going to deliver on a more equitable educational system, we needed to design tools to help teachers and students take on project-based learning as a community. We built i4Maker to be an intuitively interactive, intentionally integrated platform that connects, empowers, and builds community for project-based learning. i4Maker isn't for corporate engineering teams. Instead, its simple, streamlined, and intuitive design centers the needs of the Gen Z classroom, with supports not only for managing projects, but also for building community ties and connections. It is this community aspect that truly separates i4Maker from any current project management platform. It is meant to help transition classrooms from individuals working on individual tasks to a community of practice that supports, celebrates, and holds each other accountable to good work, making it easier for classes to find the time, capacity, and motivation they need to succeed.
When a student logs into i4Maker from either a classroom or personal device, they are able to access all of the features you would expect from a project management platform. They see which project group they are in, the goals they have, and the specific tasks they are working on. However, one key feature that sets i4Maker apart from something like Monday.com or Schoology is what happens when a student marks their task as completed. When a student presses that button, they're prompted to submit a promo picture, description, or video of their work. The submitted media is used to fill a project timeline, an online space that allows a student to see the work of other people in other groups and build a deeper understanding of how the task they completed is part of a bigger whole, something that's building toward achieving a shared goal. With i4Maker, completing tasks isn't just about getting an individual grade. It's about connecting individual tasks into a team building story that can help students understand where they have been and where they want to go together.
Potentially, the most important features of i4Maker are found in the community commons. It's the first page students see when they log in. Here is where individual, team, and classroom achievements are celebrated. It's also where students are incentivized via a point system to provide feedback and lend their skills of support to one another. Through the commons, students are able to engage in whole community accountability, freeing up the teacher's valuable time and energy, keeping them from being overwhelmed and ensuring project-based learning is successful for all students. Now, we certainly have some ambitious goals for i4Maker and truly believe that this can become a tool that will help transform classrooms for the better. However, for that to become a reality, we know we need to continue to work closely with our primary stakeholders. We started bringing mock-ups to youth we know in our research partnerships and have gotten some great feedback already. We've also been in conversation with some of our research advisors to discuss steps for expanding our team and piloting i4Maker as part of our design-based research projects next year. Ultimately, this work is really about the thing that gets me up in the morning. That's bringing more project-based learning opportunities to more students. No matter where they live or what school they go to, everyone deserves the opportunity to take on projects that are meaningful to them and to the world. I believe i4Maker can help make that dream a reality. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to answering any of your questions.
Great work, team. That was beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing your screen, and then whatever judge feels like jumping in first, go for it.
So, as someone who put together a kind of collaborative blogging process in the mid-90s for education, I'm really excited about seeing this and seeing kind of what you're thinking about here. And so we didn't necessarily get into this in the presentation, but I'm interested if you could just say a bit more about. So the thing that killed that for me was, oh my gosh, it was a lot of work, and keeping up on, like, I needed students to kind of submit a comment, right? If there was their week to submit a comment, and keeping up on that was really hard. Now I was managing this with email, a technology we used in the 90s. And so I'm just interested in how you are, how you're thinking about what I see as significant pain points in terms of instructor involvement in kind of keeping the process moving forward, right? Because you built a big collaborative process, but how do you keep it moving forward? And then another question just to tag on, well, no, I'll stop there. That's a good question.
I mean, I can just say from my experience, I guess like the updates are kind of easy. Like when students get done with a task, like right now, I tend to give them my phone and have them record a video update that way.
Yeah.
But as far as giving feedback to other students, that has to be, I think, something that's structured and supported by the teacher. So, you know, Tuesdays for the first 15 minutes, we're going to take some time and we're going to go in and you're going to look at, you know, what else is going on in the classroom, what feedback might you have. There's also sometimes when, you know, one student gets done with a project early and they have some additional time and they don't exactly know what to do, and like, oh, well, we don't have this part yet for the project. Okay, can you step in and can you give some feedback to a community, like to somebody else in the community? And so it's definitely going to have to be scaffolded by the teacher, but I think it is something that's doable, especially if it's all kind of in one spot that's easily accessible, where they can make those comments.
Yeah, I'll add to that another feature that might enhance that is this idea that we would be testing out of attaching points to feedbacks and to responding help ads. So in the comments, students are able to post requests for different skills from different students. And as students have downtime, they might take on some of those for points possibly.
So foregrounding success and failure for the whole group in a classroom can be a really disruptive thing to some people's learning. How do you work with that?
Do you mind explaining what you mean by the whole, like?
Yeah, so like there are some people who are not doing well in school and they're not happy about that and they want it kept as private as possible. There are other people who are blowing it out of the water and they don't need their peers who already think of them as a nerd to realize how well they're doing.
Yeah, so this is definitely something like I say, I brought this mock-up into with some of the youth that I'm working with right now. And that was one of the first things that they said is like, do we need to have an individual leaderboard? And so we talked about that as a team and like, can we just transition this into, team acknowledgements or something that's, less identifiable or some way that's going where we're going to have like productive, like we're going to use competition in like a friendly and productive way and not a destructive way. And I know the line between that is a thin one. And that's something that I think we really need to work with our users on it, understanding where that fits best.
I think it's important to be strategic about who you partner with and who you begin to pilot the pilot the platform with. I think that issue that you have is with foregrounding success or failure, like it's something that all teachers deal with. And I think if you set the right culture, you really can you really can use it for the better, the community involvement, the community accountability, where nobody is hidden, right? That you really can use it in your favor. And so that would be something we need to pilot and work out.
A question. You mentioned that in the beginning, the teacher's biggest pain point and reason why they don't do project-based learning is because it's just too complex to manage. And you mentioned that from your experience, you tried Monday and that was challenging, but have you talked to other teachers and what do other teachers say and how this would maybe not be an additional burden for them to manage and actually encourage them to use more project-based learning in their curriculums?
Yeah, we talked to quite a few teachers. I reached out to some that I've taught with for years and got their perspectives. Very few of them are using projects in their classrooms at all. They have tried it and it's just been too much of a headache, too much work, requires too much planning. And like, I think from like the big takeaway that we have from this work is we have to have some sort of community accountability. If the teacher is the only one who's holding each other accountable, like it's not going to work. It's not sustainable. It's not scalable. And so how do we foster that in a classroom of middle school or high school students is something that I'm excited to try to figure out working forward with this.
And I think similarly from a student's perspective, so I'm the only undergrad member of this team, but I think there's a lot of value to be added when there's like the community celebration that goes on. So if there is this, one of my classes had like a group Slack chat, and then whenever we'd like be done with the project, there would be a way to celebrate. You could post like a screenshot, and then people would comment or leave reactions on the message. And I think that really reinforces a community of support. And then furthermore, beyond that, I think that whenever like you submit something, when you submit like the video or the text to show that you're done with an assignment or task, I think it, like from a psychological perspective, it also is really beneficial to the mind to see that you were able to mark it as done, and to when you click submit and upload something. And then this is kind of really represented in something like Canvas, for example, just the throwing of confetti and being able to really celebrate your achievements, even if it's in a digital way. I think it really does a lot of good to the students too, as they're working through so many tasks, assignments, and projects throughout the year.
I think we're all familiar now with the new confetti throwing on GatherTown for Anne. If you will be throwing confetti this afternoon.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's duly noted.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing some virtual dancing.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I do project-based learning, but at the undergrad and graduate level, it's like one of the key things I do here at Michigan. And the project management aspect is overwhelming, especially I've taught a class with 41 teams before, and So what I want to hear a little bit more about in the time that we have of project management in itself, of getting people to do the things they're supposed to do, right? Is now it's just because it's in an app doesn't mean they're going to do it. And so now you're just sending reminders, like I'm watching TV and like, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. In addition to making this a community building place, like I really like, I challenge that this has dual purposes, because this, to me as the instructor, just gives me like, I want to say like, I encourage you to pick one or the other like that, because I think, or to have more people involved, because community in an app does not happen on its own. There's an abundance of research behind that.
I think that's I couldn't agree 100%. Community is not going to happen on the app. The community is going to happen in the classroom with the students and the teacher, right? That's where community is built. I think that the app, it can help support those efforts, right? If I can see when I submit something like how we're making progress towards our goal, I think that that's an important thing for us, our community building, right? This cannot be a replacement. This is not, students cannot be spending, I see this as something that students generally check in on, you know, when they start a class, then we're building, then we're working. Then we're maybe checking out as we have a task done, or maybe we have some extra time, we're checking in and seeing what another group is doing. And maybe we're providing some online support for them asynchronously, right? But that's really, it's just really a support for community building. I don't want to go so far as to say that it is the sole thing that's going to organize a community in the classroom.
Great.